Hello everyone, today we are covering FatSapphicBro here on TikTok. I haven't watched a whole lot of his content. I know sometimes he can get very almost hyperbolic with the way he phrases things. As we can see on his, it's not I want to call it a channel, but I don't think that's how it's referred to. His TikTok page, weight loss free page, fat liberation, disability justice, trans rights. He's 35. And there's a link tree, which I'm curious about. Okay, so we're going to just take a moment to look at his link tree. So we have art and craft swap and commissions. Help me get a custom wheelchair. Medical fat phobia documentary interest form. I'm curious about that. My glasses. Mental health effects of weight loss surgery. Why is weight loss so dangerous? Diabetes management 1 and 2. I'm curious if these are like fat acceptance type of diabetes management. My water bottle sticker, my water bottle. Okay, so it's preferred walker, fat friendly doctors, how to find size affirming care, health at every size community and association for size diversity and health. Okay, so a good portion of his link tree just sent me to specific TikToks he made, not like actual websites or citations. So that might be something we can look at in the future if you're interested, but I'd like to start with their most recent content as of this date, which I think is actually going to be about a week behind you guys, because it's spring break for me right now, and I'm trying to get ahead of some stuff. So yes, pre-recorded content, sorry. But, and then that medical interest form, I didn't include because it had my email at the top. But, it was just some basic information, assuming that the person is a plus-size person, asking how they refer to their body and that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and just start with his content.
This person says it isn't the weight killing people, it's and I think the other comment said it's the treatment. And yes, 100%. So we were talking about how weight loss surgery and losing weight rapidly and losing large chunks of weight have a lot of serious complications, including higher risk of heart issues, because your body, when it is being starved, starts doing what's called muscle wasting. It starts eating at your muscle instead of your fat, and your heart is a muscle. So, do the math there. This is the big problem, and this is what really upsets me about fat people being treated as a weight loss problem, because you have a significant number of fat people who lose a significant amount of weight, especially in a very, very short period of time, and then eventually have heart attacks and don't survive, and then get blamed for the reason they died. So their treatments kill us, and then they still say, oh, it's because they were obese. And it's super fucked up, and I'm incredibly over it.
There is so much wrong with his claims. I mean, there's a lot wrong here. That whole muscle wasting thing, I've been hearing this a little bit more in the fat acceptance spaces, and it's just so stupid. The body isn't going to start eating away at the heart when it has fat cells available to it, because your body is in the business of staying alive. Your body has mechanisms in place to try to keep you alive. It's not going to start eating away at heart tissue because you're trying to lose weight when you have ample fat stores still available. It's just not going to do that. That's stupid. Where is the study on that one? I would like to know. Also, that bit on weight loss surgeries killing people and there being heart attacks, it felt like there was a little bit of a conflation there. In one breath, it seemed like he was saying that weight loss, I think that goes back to the body eating the heart tissue, the heart muscle, whatever, which isn't how the body works in any capacity. that I know of, and if there's evidence to the contrary, where are the fucking citations? Because that is a bold claim to make, my friend. Also, like, I could see potentially being at higher risk for a heart attack, not because your body's eating away at the heart tissue, but because your heart has had to work so hard to deal with the excessive amount of weight, that sudden drop in weight. Your heart is still working really hard because you didn't lose that weight in a progressive fashion. With weight loss surgery, it's a good portion is taken off immediately. And so your body probably goes through an adjustment period, at least. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But, like, there's a bunch of medical professionals around weight loss surgeries, provided you didn't go to, like, just a liposuction place. But there's also medical professionals around that, too. So, I don't know. But there's typically, like, a good medical team, especially for, like, the morbidly obese, that they're going to monitor for complications like this. So, I feel like that thing about heart attacks, if it isn't directly tied to the surgery and maybe the heart not handling the surgery well, then perhaps it was the weight loss surgery didn't take because the people didn't adhere to the dietary regimen, and it put more stress on their heart, and that's why they had the heart attack. Or something just went wrong, or maybe their body was overtaxed to begin with, and their body couldn't handle the surgery the way the doctors thought it could. That could have also been an issue. But there's so much wrong with this. I'm struggling with it.
Updated boundary video time. First and foremost, this is an intentional weight loss free zone. If you are on a weight loss journey, if you are actively trying to lose weight, this profile is not for you. The only exception is if you are being coerced by your doctor, i.e. a doctor is gatekeeping medical treatment until you lose weight. We call that coercive weight loss. It is very different than intentional weight loss. I've answered every possible question around this, so I will not answer any more questions about it. Also, this is a no troll engagement account, so if you see troll comments, it just means I haven't gotten to them yet. Do not engage. You can report the comment if you feel that it violates the community guidelines, but otherwise just tag me and include the username of the troll. That way I can make sure to handle them. But otherwise, don't argue with them, don't engage with them. No troll engagement. Other things to note about this account. We are an ACAB account, yes, all cops. We believe survivors of assault always. We believe trans and non-binary people about their identities, and we support their identities. We use proper pronouns for people here. We do not engage in body shaming or making fun of other people's bodies. We are fat positive and believe in fat liberation. We support disabled and mentally ill people. We believe Black Lives Matter. We are anti-fascist. We acknowledge, address, and stay aware of our privileges. We listen to and support marginalized people. And I think those are all the big points that I want to make sure folks know about this page. If other things come up, I will update this video. But for now, I think that's a good summary of sort of the rules and boundaries for engagement on this page and what things we do and do not support here. If you're on board with all of the above, then you are welcome to stick around. Thank you. If you're going to comment to argue with me or tell me why you don't agree with the boundaries for this page, I literally do not care. I will just delete your comment and I will block you. So don't waste your time. You are not welcome here.
I wish people like him and Marissa would understand that the more you explicitly try to say, no, don't do this, the more likely someone is to do it. And granted, they can spend their entire day deleting comments and blocking users if that's what they want to do. There's someone with the equally amount of free time and nothing left and nothing to do that they will just continue to make additional channels or profiles and post on here just to piss you off. And it's not that I'm saying that, you can't have these boundaries or these rules for your profile page. Just don't expect people to follow them. I mean, you can enforce them however you want. As a general rule, for my personal channel here, for this channel, I let people more or less say what they want. If they disagree with me, fine. If they want to accuse me of being fatphobic, fine. I've gotten some that said, I've gotten like one or two saying, if I'm gonna talk shit like this, I need to show my face and stuff. I let those stay. I'm not gonna show my face because I don't feel the need to. But, like, I don't expect people to stop commenting that. And I'm not gonna spend time continually blocking it because I feel like that just encourages people to post it. So, I don't know. I just think that it's kind of an exercise in futility to post videos like this because the people that it's meant for aren't going to heed it, and then everyone else probably already respects those boundaries, as you put it, anyway. So it just feels like this big display or something. I don't know. But, yeah, people can post. Well, they at the very least, they will post whatever they want because you don't own this website, you don't own this space, as much as you may like to think you do. Alright, so I've been through his stuff for the past 2 weeks, and there wasn't a whole lot to comment on, so we're going to go ahead and I'm using the videos from his link tree, and we'll just go over those real quick and then call it done for now. So, mental health risks after bariatric surgery.
So on top of the physical after effects that come from bariatric surgery, apparently there's some research to show that there are long-term psychological effects too. Let me show you something. So this is an article titled "Risk of Suicide and Self-Harm is Increased After Bariatric Surgery, a Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis." If you go down to the conclusions, it says post-bariatric surgery patients had higher self-harm/suicide attempt risk compared to age, sex, and BMI-matched controls. Various pre- and post-surgical psychosocial, pharmacokinetic, physiological, and medical factors may be involved. Then there's another article right below it called "Risk of Suicide and Non-Fatal Self-Harm After Bariatric Surgery Results from 2 Matched Cohort Studies." And in the interpretation, it says bariatric surgery was associated with suicide and non-fatal self-harm. However, the absolute risks were low and do not justify a general discouragement of bariatric surgery. The findings indicate a need for thorough preoperative psychiatric history assessment along with provision of information about increased risk of self-harm following surgery. Moreover, the findings call for post-operative surveillance with particular attention to mental health. So they have research showing that people have long-term psychological effects after bariatric surgery, and instead of figuring out why or figuring out how to alleviate that, they still encourage you to do bariatric surgery. It doesn't seem that they...
Okay, I'm sorry. I have to stop him here for a moment because the interpretation had said that the risk was low, meaning that there's probably only a few from the general sample in the study that experienced those effects. It's not saying that it's this overwhelming thing that's happening, but, we should ignore it. If it's saying that the risk is low, then that means that the general sample did not yield a high percentage of people experiencing those suicidal and self-harm, non-fatal self-harm behaviors. And so their suggestion for a more thorough pre-op psychological assessment to me seems pretty sound given what the findings were. He just went down to the interpretation and didn't look deeper into the study itself, seeing how they drew those conclusions. So it's harder to say. When I see general things like that saying low risk, I'm like, okay, so what was the general increase? And I go back up to the analysis section and we'll kind of review that myself and see if I get a better sense of the general statistics of it. Not so much about disagreeing, but just seeing if their idea of low is something that I'm comfortable with. I think that, so he's already kind of misrepresenting what the studies said.
Care to research why there's more psychological harm, though I have plenty of my theories about it. I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that, first of all, often after you have bariatric surgery, that's not the only time you'll have to do it. You will have to rehab the surgery again, sometimes more than twice. You also have to entirely...
As far as I understand, I'm curious where he gets that information. You will likely have to get it again, and sometimes more than twice. The only time I've ever heard of that happening was for people that did not follow adherence to the dietary restrictions and then went against what they were supposed to do and essentially undid the surgery on themselves, so they had to do it again. That's my basic understanding of how that happens. If someone has like a different understanding and can explain that to me, I'd really appreciate it. But otherwise, right now that sounds kind of like a load of bullshit to me.
Change the way you eat. You're basically on a diet for the rest of your life, and it's a very minimal diet, and that comes with a lot of complications. There's all of the risks we talked about in that last video. Obviously, this is going to make people feel not fucking great, right?
So, as far as I understand, that whole thing about being on the diet for the rest of your life is true. Like, I think they can never have soda again. Like, carbonation is just out the window. And then their general consumption tends to be lower. And I think that it's more likely to affect people that view food as a friend, and food was their primary coping mechanism. I can see how that would lead to non-fatal self-harm and suicidal behaviors because they have lost their coping mechanism. So the general stresses of life can be too much, and those people could be transferring it to other unhealthy ways of coping with their stress. I don't think that means that bariatric surgery in itself is harmful, but I do think that there's probably more psychological care that needs to go into the general bariatric surgery field, which we see if you watch like the first My 600-Pound Life and the current one, they have changed a lot in what they do to make sure people are more psychologically prepared for the surgery.
So they use scare tactics to convince you that if you don't do this surgery that you're going to die. Then you do this surgery and they offer you no post support and don't even want to address all of the multitude of risks that come with the surgery and all of the ill effects after the surgery. It's infuriating. And again, this is standard treatment. They push people into bariatric surgery. Often they push people who have no business getting bariatric surgery into getting bariatric surgery. And as the BMI continues to change, more and more people are considered obese, which means more and more people can be referred for bariatric surgery. It's clearly a money-making scheme, y'all.
No, it isn't. And that whole thing about more people being considered obese and therefore more people are recommended for the bariatric surgery is in my experience, no, that's not the case. Like, I'm technically on the BMI. I'm like obese 1. I'm like just on the inside of the obese spectrum, and diet and exercise can get me down to a healthy weight. They're not going to just, like, the minute you cross that obesity threshold, they're shoving bariatric surgery in your face. That's not how that works. It's typically people who are morbidly obese and stand a greater risk of dying before they can get down to a healthy weight naturally. There's a weighing of risk factors for bariatric surgery. And to say that they have no support afterwards, I think is a misrepresentation. That the no psychological support afterwards, I think, was probably true about 10 years ago. But I think the medical field has grown to recognize that there is a significant need for addressing the psychological effects of the surgery. And so more has been done in favor of that and moving towards that. So this was a great big giant misrepresentation of how things work to suit his narrative, and I don't care for it.
So this commenter wants to know why weight loss surgery is dangerous. So let's get into that a little bit. This article is titled Long-Term Weight Regain After Gastric Bypass, a 5-year prospective study. Scroll down to the conclusion. It tells you weight regain was observed within 24 months after surgery in approximately 50% of patients, which is a horrific success rate. Bariatric surgery, a perspective for primary care from American surgery, a perspective for primary care from American success
Okay, what is the date of this one? 2017.
rate. Bariatric surgery, a perspective for primary care from American Diabetes Association. Scrolling down to complications after bariatric surgery. You can pause to read at each little stop, and it runs down for you all of the associated risks. There is a ton. As you can see, there is a fuck ton of complications with all of the different weight loss surgeries.
So actually, I do want to comment. So first, on the first study, he said that was from 2008, which was at this point. Well, we'll use the date. So 2021. So 10, 11, 12, 13 years prior. I think the medical field has changed quite a bit in terms specifically of bariatric surgery in those 10 years. We've even seen it on My 600-Pound Life and how they treat the patients and how the surgery's approach has changed drastically. So that 50% like undoing their surgery and gaining the weight back was probably due to psychological precautions not being taken and not providing them dietitians and issues in that regard that have since been fixed. So I don't really care for the representation of a 2008 study when, just from what I've seen from TLC, for God's sakes, and how the care has changed. Number two, if you actually just skim, like I did, those complications that he listed, yeah, there were a lot, but they affected anywhere from 1 to 5% typically, with the highest one I saw being 15%, which 15% is no joke, but the 1 to 5%, like, there's just as many complications from, like, antidepressants. I mean, you can have major complications from them that affect a very small portion of the people that experience it. I mean, it's just... like, that's just how some people respond. Every human body's different, and they're not all going to tolerate surgeries the same way, and so shit like that happens. That's not a representation that, oh my god, look at this huge list of things. He's treating it like it's definitely going to happen. These are the risk factors that you're going to get. No, the vast majority of them are between 1 and 5%. That means out of 100 people, between 1 and 5 could have these risks. And for that one thing, which I don't remember what specific side effect it was, but it was up to 15. So up to 15 of the 100 people. And I'm not saying that that's ideal or anything, but that's just the nature of medicine in any form.
And this is just a couple articles out of a lot that I could have pulled. It also comes with having to stick to a
If that was just a couple out of a lot that you could have pulled, why did you pull an article that was 13 years old and another one that was... well, the other one was only about 4 years old, so it could have been worse. But the 13 years old one, like, if you could have pulled a bunch of other ones, why did you pick one from 2008?
very, very strict diet basically for the rest of your life. You start with like a liquid only diet and it slowly ramps up, but it completely changes the way that you can consume food, which can lead to a lot of malnutrition issues. Obviously, everyone is free to make their own decisions, but you could not pay me any amount of money to have any form of weight loss surgery.
This really feels like fear mongering of something that could actually legitimately help people, and I don't care for it. This is a complete misrepresentation of even the studies themselves. It's like he didn't read them and he just saw, wow, this is a long list of complications that people can get, and and came to his conclusions from there, rather than actually reading the complications after surgery in full and taking a look at the general percentages and statistics of each of these complications and the likelihood of them affecting patients. And he's completely warping things to fit his narrative in this, and I don't care for it.
Not with all of these risks and with how ineffective it is. And then you have lifelong risks. Also, well, lifelong risks and issues. Also, go through the comments on both of those videos. There are a ton of horror stories from people who have either had weight loss surgery or who have loved ones who have had weight loss surgery that either died or have had severe complications. So read through comments. There's a lot of personal stories.
I'm not denying that there's likely horror stories regarding bariatric surgery. There's bad doctors everywhere. And even those doctors that did what they were supposed to do, if the body did not tolerate the surgery well, then unfortunately complications and things that make your life miserable do happen. But that doesn't mean that the whole thing is bad. Unfortunately, this is just an aspect of medicine that is a fact of life.
This person asks, do you have any advice on having diabetes and feeling shame with eating anything? Sorry if you've already talked about this. I'm struggling right now. EXO. No problem, BB. I have not talked about this previously, but this is a super valid thing. It was really, really difficult for me when I first got diagnosed with diabetes in 2014 to realize that I would have to do some degree of what looked like dieting. And it was very triggering for my disordered eating, and it really made things very, very difficult. But know a few things. First of all, the only way to manage your diabetes is to know what foods cause your diabetes to spike and what foods keep your blood sugar low. So, the only way to test that is to eat things. You have to just eat.
Another way to do that is to follow the glycemic index diet. Diabetes runs rampant in my family, and I know that they're not fans of diets, but there's a specific diet for people trying to manage diabetes without insulin. My grandmother has followed that for the most part. She's partakes in the occasional donut, but like my grandmother follows the glycemic index diet, and she's in her 80s and has never had to use insulin.
Things. Eat a serving of something and test after an adequate amount of time to see what it does for your blood sugar, so that you start having a list of foods that are for you, that are safe foods for you. Every diabetic.
I think this is, I understand the concept of bodies, even with the same food, can process it slightly differently. I think this is a lot of work to put on people and isn't necessary. I think that a good shortcut is the glycemic index diet.
Is different. What one diabetic can eat, another cannot. So you have to figure out what your list of diabetic-friendly foods are. And then you have to figure out which foods are your favorite foods that cause way too much spiking. And those are the things that you really want to moderate. It doesn't mean that you stop eating them forever. It just means that you don't eat a lot of it all of the time. You eat more of the foods on your safe list and a little bit less of the foods on the not so safe list. Don't look at it like a diet. Look at it like closer to a food allergen. Your body cannot process certain foods the way it's.
So I'm sorry that he doesn't like to call it a diet and would prefer to call it a food allergen list or something. but literally low glycemic index foods to help control blood sugar. Here you go. Here are some typically safe foods because these have lower sugar in them. And it gives you actually, so this one is not separated by, because what they will do is do like the stoplight system. Green foods, these are generally safe to eat in large portions. Medium foods, watch out how much you have of this. And red foods have these on very rare occasions. But this one shows you medium and high index, but you can kind of get an idea of what's going to work for you. Notice that white bread, it has an extremely high glycemic index. There's no reason to have people go through every single thing they eat and test everything. That's a huge amount of diabetic test strips to go through. Not everyone has the money to go through diabetic test strips like that. Instead of being so fucking against dieting, how about you give people tools that will actually help them manage their disease, rather than to continue to be on your goddamn soapbox. I'm pissed. I don't want to watch the rest of that video because I'm actually really irritated, and I think for all of this shit that they say about privilege and knowing your privilege and shit like that as a thin person or whatever, how about you clearly have money, or you're on some sort of assistance program where you can get your diabetic test strips. Diabetic test strips can cost some people a lot of money and they can't always afford it. So testing after every single food is unreasonable. It's unreasonable and it can really hurt someone financially. And instead, they can just look at the glycemic index and have a general rubric of what is good for them to eat and how to manage their blood sugar. I'm done. I'm done with FatSapphicBro. I need a break because I'm actually really irritated now, and not in a fun way. I'm annoyed. I'm really annoyed, and I'm gonna take a break. Feel like my computer's about to crash anyway. Hopefully this comes out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.